As the crazy witch's friend clings to Jiang innocently, she asks him what he's doing there. Jiang looks down at her in anger and remembers that she was the one who persuaded the crazy woman to swindle him out of his family's property in his past life. He swore to pay her back twice the misery he suffered, with his face still filled with rage. The friend, on the other hand, was still asking what he was doing there while trying to act like a good girl. She asked him if this was the land he bought and complimented the scenery, calling it a very nice place. She then asked if he planned to build there, while desperately squeezing her melons against his arms. Jiang pushed her away and told her that whatever he was building had nothing to do with her. The girl was completely shocked at his actions. She didn't think a pathetic loser would have the mind to push away a hot chick like her. She asked herself what was going on and didn't understand why Jiang was acting so weird that day. In a normal circumstance, just touching her hand would make him blush and his heart race. But now he was completely irritated by her presence. Even after deliberately caressing his hands, he still had no reaction towards her. While she was angry and nervous, Jiang went ahead to talk with the construction workers and told them that the gates needed to be expanded. The crazy girl's friend called out to him, but he just ignored her like a piece of garbage. Since he had broken up with Jiang, the friend didn't want to miss the opportunity to take Jiang for herself. She saw it as a golden opportunity for the land to be hers. She gritted her teeth and clutched her hand in desperation as she thought about how to make things work in her favor. Back at Jiang's home, he sat down on his couch with the documents of his newly bought land laid out on the table. He said that he had pledged the house to the bank, but it only got him 3 million, which wasn't nearly enough for the first phase of the construction. He needed to figure out how to get more money into his broke pockets. With a serious look on his face, he thought that since the apocalypse was coming soon, it wouldn't matter if he sold the house multiple times, and then concluded that he would do just that. Suddenly, he heard loud bangs at his door and a voice yelling at him to open it. As he walked to open the door, he said the voice belonged to his downstairs neighbor, Grandpa Lai. The old, rickety man was a nuisance who had some money, and he owned the first and second floors of the building where Jiang lived. Lai also wanted to buy Jiang's third floor, but the house was meant to be his matrimonial home, which was why he didn't want to sell it. As Jiang grabbed the door handle, he said that the old man was always causing a ruckus, splashing paint, dumping garbage, placing funeral wreaths, and jamming the locks. He opened the door, and Grandpa Lai immediately accused him of going clubbing the previous night. Jiang yelled back at the man and asked if he was done with his silly theatrics. He told the man that he went to bed before 10 last night, so there was no way he could have gone clubbing. Lai said that he didn't care and that he heard something, but Jiang cut him off and told the old man to stop his annoying rambling. He was fed up with Lai and his crazy stunts. Since the old man wanted the house, Jiang said that he'd sell it to him. The old man was completely stunned and asked Jiang if he was really serious. Jiang looked down at the monkey-faced old man and said that he'd sell it on one condition, and Lai asked what it was. He told the old man that his new house wouldn't be ready until after 6 months, so he needed to stay there for that amount of time. Before that, the old man would have to pay him a total of 5 million for the house all at once. With that, he'd be able to pay off the loan on his new house. Lai was about to respond, but Jiang cut him off and said that if he didn't agree, then he should forget it, while slowly closing his door. Lai stopped the door, pushed his head in, and nervously said that they'd have to sign a contract to avoid any regrets. Jiang looked really irritated as he looked at the ugly old man and told him that the contract wouldn't be a problem. Of course, with a plague coming in a month's time, Jiang had successfully swindled the old fool. He closed his door and cursed the old man out, telling him to stay in his house and wait to meet his maker. Jiang began going through his phone, calculating the old man's 5 million together with the 3 million loan, which came to a total of 8 million. The system popped up and showed that he had completed the first task of owning a piece of land. With that, he claimed the system's reward. The next day, he went into the city to complete the next task, which was to get a year's worth of supplies. He breezed through the shopping mall, collecting many items that could be useful to him. The people there thought he was deranged, and some even said the foolish boy should be avoided. They all stood and watched him as he filled numerous carts with supplies that would last him a year. They didn't understand what he was going to do with all that stuff, and some of them even called him a pathetic idiot who believed in doomsday rumors. Jiang wasn't bothered by their comments because he already knew what was coming. By the time he had gathered all the items, the task was completed, and the system rewarded him with 10 points. As he looked through the system store, he thought about how enhancing attributes would be useful during the apocalypse, but he was too broke for that. The protagonist supply box was the best thing for him to get with his 10 points. Jiang had a pumped-up look on his face as he convinced himself to get the protagonist supply box and expand his advantage immediately. He bought the box, and his 10 points were deducted. The supply box popped out with an infinity symbol on the top of it and question marks around its body. When the box gets unlocked, we see the system information pop up and tell him that he got a level 1 space ring. The ring had a huge spatial space of 500 cubic meters, and time in the space was static. Jiang knew the first item he was going to get would be a gold one. With the time-static properties of the ring, it meant that fresh food wouldn't spoil. Jiang was happy about this information because he was a good-for-nothing idiot who didn't know how to cook for himself. After that, the system brought up his next task and told him to get supplies for 10 years, with the reward for that being 20 points. As that happened, the store manager walked out with some guards and asked who was causing trouble in his store. He looked like a mangy mutt as he asked Jiang to identify himself. Jiang recognized him as Yang Tao, his middle school classmate, and a dumb lackey of the school bully, Zhang Xingzhi. Yang always liked to bully weaker people, but couldn't stand up to those stronger than him. We see that in the past, Yang and a couple of other dumb-looking idiots bullied Jiang and asked him for a protection fee. During that encounter, Jiang told them to screw off, and that Sheng should come collect the money if he wants it. Anyway, he was surprised to run into the same blockhead at the store, much less as a manager. Yang told him to return all the items he put in his cart or else. Jiang cut him off and mocked him for still bullying weak people and acting like a useless wimp in front of those stronger than him. He told Yang that he was there to make a purchase and asked if that was how Hurenfa treated its customers. Yang thought he was crazy for actually saying he was going to purchase all those items. He told Jiang to pay for them immediately or else he would get rough-handled. An hour later, all his items were scanned, and the cashier printed out the total. As Yang was told the total price by the cashier, he handed out the payment terminal to Jiang and yelled at him to pay immediately. With a spark of confidence in his eyes, Jiang swiped his card as if he were in a battle. The transfer was successful, but Yang didn't look too happy about that. As he walked away with his guards, Jiang called him back. Yang was already pissed off enough, and he asked Jiang what he was doing. Jiang told him to apologize for his rude behavior, or else he would return all the goods that he just purchased. The store manager felt insulted and told Jiang not to push his luck, but the other customers interrupted him and told him to apologize. They told the blockhead that an apology wasn't much, and if he didn't, they wouldn't let it go. One of them had even started recording and was ready to make Yang a famous piece of shit. Jiang told him again to apologize, and if he did, Jiang said he would buy 10 times the amount of items he had already bought. Yang didn't believe his words, so Jiang told him to bring the POS machine so he could show his balance. He swiped his card on it, and Yang was shocked to see that the pathetic weakling he knew had over 7 million. It was an amount that he had never attained in his wretched life. Once again, Jiang told him to apologize. With no choice, Yang bowed down like a peasant and said he was sorry. As he bowed, Jiang patted him on the head and told him not to be so reckless in the future and to leave room for others. Yang had an utterly defeated look on his face, but he couldn't retaliate since it would only bring more trouble for him. He asked Jiang what he was doing with all the things he bought, and the mix said he was planning a big venture. Yang told him that the supermarket's inventory wouldn't be enough for his venture and that he needed a wholesaler. Jiang turned back his head and asked Yang if he knew some wholesalers since he worked at the store. Surprisingly, the wholesaler he knew was Shengzhi, the dumb bully who always extorted Jiang in school. Yang quickly called Shengzhi and told him that he had found a big client. Jiang looked disappointed at the fact that Yang was still Shengzhi's useless slave. He wondered how much gray income the two of them could have made in the supermarket. After that, Jiang and Yang went to a warehouse. A badass car swiftly drove in and nearly turned Yang into a cadaver. Jiang was angry at how arrogant the driver was. The driver, Shengzhi, stepped out of the car, smoking a cigarette and puffing the smoke clouds in the air. Yang introduced him to Jiang and asked if he remembered him from their high school days. Sheng proved that all the smoke had clogged up his ears as he made Yang repeat himself. He finally said that he remembered who Jiang was and blew smoke on his face. He referred to Jiang as the guy with a bit of a backbone. He tugged at Jiang's hoodie drawstring and called it a fake designer brand. Sheng said he hated people like him who pretended to be rich when they weren't. Jiang replied by saying that he didn't know if it was a designer brand and that he just bought it from a random store. Sheng grabbed Yang's head and yelled at him for bringing such a useless guy as a client. He told Yang that his time was wasted with Jiang's presence and kicked him in the butt. Yang tried to explain that his client was a really big one, but Sheng didn't believe the idiot's words. He said that he could tell who was rich, and he wasn't because he had been in the business for many years. But it was obvious that his brain and eyes were also clogged up from his rubbish cigarettes. Jiang felt his aura wasn't working and said that he couldn't intimate illiterates like Sheng Ji, who looked down on people. Sheng arrogantly grabbed him by the collar and told him to repeat what he just said. But Jiang wasn't fazed by the fool. Jiang repeated himself and said that he looked down on people, but Sheng focused on the part where he was called illiterate. Jiang took it that he didn't mind being told that he looked down on people. Yang then tried to calm down the situation and said that Sheng's sore spot was when people called him illiterate because he really was one, and he hated being called that the most. Sheng kicked him to the side like a trash can and told him to shut up since he could talk so well. Then he threatened Jiang by saying that he wouldn't leave there standing if he didn't buy a truckload of goods. Jiang whipped out his phone and told the dumb bully to stop tugging on his collar and show him the account he was going to pay to. Seconds later, he wired $1 million to Sheng, who was surprised to see such an amount of money. He looked completely baffled as he read the transfer details on his phone. Jiang let him know that there was no other reason for him to be there. He said he was going to buy $5 million worth of goods. Then he told Sheng to load up the truck with the rest, and he would pay the balance when the goods were ready. Sheng asked him what kind of goods he wanted, and he replied, saying it was rice, salt, and basically anything that was edible or drinkable. He wanted it all. Then Sheng, with a sly smile on his face, told Jiang to follow him. Unknown to Jiang, Sheng planned to give him a batch of food that was nearly expired. They went into the warehouse, where it was filled with barrels and crates of different kinds of supplies. Sheng offered to give him a 10% discount if he took the whole batch. He was going to stoop to any level to get the goods off his hands. Jiang told him it would depend on the quality of the goods as he walked towards the crates. He got to one of the crates, picked up a brown bag, and began to analyze the item. Looking closely at it, he told Sheng that everything was nearly expired, except for the outermost layer. Jiang called him a shrewd man for trying to set him up like that. Sheng was surprised that he was able to figure it out. Caught between a rock and a hard place, he then offered Jiang a 50% discount. Jiang told him that there was no need because he was only using the $5 million to buy the best quality goods. He then said that he had other plans for the expired goods, and Sheng wondered what this crazy guy was talking about. Jiang was going to take the nearly expired goods at the 50% discount, but the payment would arrive a month later. Sheng asked what would happen if the goods expired and he didn't get his payment, but Jiang assured him that he would mortgage his house to him if that happened. Sheng was still curious as to why someone would buy that many nearly expired goods. He asked Jiang what his channel was, to which Jiang replied that the channel was himself. Jiang told him that even expired goods would be worth a fortune in a few days, as he tapped Sheng's shoulder. A cold sweat ran down Sheng's face, and he looked like he had already shit on himself. With a shaky voice, he asked Jiang what he meant, but Jiang told him to stop asking questions and just deliver the goods, and that he would send him the address later. Jiang suddenly got a call, and the voice over the phone asked if he was selling his second-hand house. As he left to take the call, he told Sheng that he had other matters to attend to and that he should take care of the food. He then walked out of the warehouse. Yang, who had been a complete nuisance, asked Sheng if he had scammed him. But Sheng wondered how Jiang was doing so well since his family was short of anything special. Jiang got back home and met Grandpa Lai. If you guys want the next part, then complete the aim of 100 likes and 100 subscribers. If you complete that, then I will upload the next part. Otherwise, I can't upload it. Who gave him a bag full of money as a deposit. The old man accepted his condition to leave the house in 3 months and asked to sign the contract immediately. Jiang just looked at the old fool and said that he didn't even inspect the house before making a deposit. He was puzzled as to why Lai was so desperate to get the house and asked the old man why he was in such a hurry. Lai, with a sad look on his face, told Jiang that his granddaughter needed to transfer schools, so they urgently needed the house for residency. He had been looking around the area, but only Jiang's house was up for sale, and he begged Jiang not to back out of their deal. Jiang called out the silly man's honesty and asked if he wasn't afraid that he would raise the price after hearing what he just said. Grandpa Lai was shocked at Jiang's words, and he looked like he could have had a heart attack at any moment. He told Jiang that buying the house would cost him their entire family's savings, but Jiang assured him that he wasn't going to back out. After that, they signed the contract, and Lai was relieved that his granddaughter wouldn't have to sleep in the streets like a gutter rat. He bowed like a peasant before leaving and left Jiang to attend to more important matters. As he left, Jiang thought the old man's kind and honest traits would be his doom during the apocalypse. He quickly stopped the man for a second and asked for Lai to give him the address of where he currently lived. The next day, Jiang returned to the construction site to see how his new place was coming along. As he got there, the construction manager asked for the second batch of funds like a hungry ingrate, but Jiang told him that he would transfer the funds soon. The construction manager showed him around the place as they walked inside the building and said that it was between 70 and 80% complete. They stood under the reinforced doors and walls, and he assured Jiang that they were absolutely safe. Jiang asked about the warehouse and was told that it had already been cleaned up and was ready to be used. With that information, he called Sheng with a happy look on his face and told the dumb bully to bring the goods. Moments later, workers began to fill up the warehouse with boxes of supplies. They happily did their work because their boss was paying each person a lot of money. They were a bunch of broke fools, and they needed some way to sustain themselves in their miserable lives, which was about to be cut short by the apocalypse. They commented on how the place looked like a shelter and said that rich people really valued their lives. Jiang directed them and told them to make sure that the perishable goods were stored separately. After a work-filled day, the underpaid interns started leaving the warehouse when night came. As they left, Jiang stood in front of his tower of supplies and was happy to be done with that task. The system showed that he completed the task of acquiring 10 years' worth of supplies and rewarded him with 20 points. As Jiang looked through the system's store, he noticed that there was a new box item there. It was a box that would give him an awakening ability. Jiang was happy at the fact that he would be able to gain abilities before the dawn of the apocalypse since he was a good-for-nothing weakling. He quickly purchased the box, and it gave him the ability known as the Mind's Eye. It would help to detect if another party was hostile or had harmful intentions. Jiang said that it was one of the most useful abilities in the early days of the apocalypse. He would easily be able to tell friends from foe and deal with them accordingly. After that, the system popped his next mission, which was to arm himself. Jiang had a mischievous look on his face as he said that was what he had in mind. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, then don't forget to subscribe and like the video.